Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Red Room. Tonight is a continuation of looking at the goals that are represent or fill in all of the building blocks of a healthy lifestyle. And that means the building blocks of building yourself, your abilities, your capabilities, and building your ability to express those things, to um, make them visible in the world, to change your behavior so that you can master the expression of those abilities. And then, of course, using those abilities for a constructive reason, for a mission in the world. And tonight, we are looking at the third of 6 sections of the building blocks. So if we look, this is an, if we look at this one right here, this is like something you got from last week, where it shows all 6 levels of the building blocks. And we've already covered the first 2, the physical and the belonging. Today we're going to look at what it takes for us to develop a positive sense of self. But first, before I launch into that, thank you for tuning in tonight. It's always wonderful to have people accompany me and affirm that how I'm teaching is effective and that it's meaningful to you, and also for you to ask any questions that are on your mind, because that's what I'm here for, to help out in whatever way I can reasonably do that's positive. So if we look at last week, it was about bonding and belonging, and bonding in your family, in your home, being able to feel like you come home and you identify with that and you have a place where you belong, and then a place that you belong with your friendships in the world, and then where you belong in the tribe that you like, whatever activities that you're involved with. A tribe of people of some sort, whether it's 3 people who help out with a brownies troop, or it's 30 people that are on a project to help the local battered women's shelter or Habitat for Humanity, or one of your religious places, or something at work that's a special project, because at work we find tribes where we really belong as well. So I'm just wondering if those of you who have tuned in tonight, if you have any questions on that, because I wanted to give you a chance, a week, to work on it and to see if you came up with things that satisfied you to fill in your goal sheet. And that means that your goal sheet is number 1 over here, happy at home. Number 2, your cultural identity and how you have yourself in the culture, in the place where you belong, you feel like you belong, and then in your social community. If you haven't got any questions about that for me tonight, you can ask anytime you like. I'm going to move into the building blocks number 7, 8, and 9 for tonight. And these are developing a positive sense of self. And we hear various places, pretty typical, that people talk about a sense of low self-esteem or inadequacy or low self-confidence. And sometimes we look at it kind of hopelessly, like, well, this person has a sense of low self-esteem or doesn't have enough confidence, and that's just the way they are. Well, from my viewpoint, no. We can develop a sense of identity, a sense of self-confidence, a sense of self-esteem more and more and more as the years go by, if we decide to. And how we use that sense of positive self in the world, and especially for role models, for the people around us who are our friends and associates, and especially for the younger people that we have. But more than anything, it means being comfortable being yourself. Kind of like that term, I know you've probably heard it, being comfortable in your own skin, accepting yourself as you are, knowing that you're growing and changing, and yet at the same time knowing that who I am right now is a good person. And that's one of the terms that helped me a lot when I was um, needing to develop more self-confidence, more self-esteem. And after many, many years, of course, we grow up, we grow into it. We've experienced so many things that we naturally have a sense of ourselves and a sense of confidence in knowing ourselves and that we're a good person. And so sometimes when we feel pressed or threatened or made to feel inadequate or made to feel guilty about something, there's that little phrase, it's just a simple little phrase that you can say to yourself. And that's, maybe this is uncomfortable, but I'm really a good person. I'm a good person. Sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we do bad things. Sometimes we hurt people. Sometimes we fall down on the job. And yep, we're just human. And we're a good person. A good person is not a perfect person. A good person has things that they need to learn. They don't know everything. And yet they're a good person. So I'd like that to kind of be the tenor of this sense, a positive sense of self, to really know right down deep inside yourself, I'm a good person. Yes, you may think ugly thoughts or do inadequate things. However, I have this conviction that the great majority of people in the world are good people. There are a few, of course, who are so unhealthy that their influence in the world is mean and evil, and they walk with a degree of self-hatred, whether or not they know it. And that person is not living the health of a good person. But most of us, we're a good person. So I'm just wondering if you resonate with that. And thank you for tuning in. And so the step number 7, this positive sense of self. Let's get a feel for that. Identity, a sense of this is who I am. Worthiness, dignity, pride, self-confidence, willing to learn, and having high expectations. High expectations, meaning that we're looking for something better. We're hoping to grow. We're willing to be more of who we can be, study, learn, grow, improve. That sense of high expectations underneath everything lifts us no matter what happens. So we want to have that kind of a positive attitude and that kind of a positive sense of self. There are certain traditions, and I do not respect those traditions, which insult people or judge or criticize people, put them down, limit them, tell them that they're bad, tell them that there are certain things that they can't do because they're a bad person if they even think about them. All of those are one of the areas where I consider it falls on the unhealthy end of one of those lifetime dilemmas. Remember I showed you the lifetime dilemma? It's a continuum. On one hand, there is too little. On the other hand, there is too much. And both the too little and the too much are unhealthy. What we want is kind of going back and forth here in the middle. So there are traditions that probably are looking to make people do the right thing or be a better person, and yet they give too little or too much of this judgment. And then that then affects our sense of self, a sense of identity, worthiness, self-esteem, so that we want not to be arrogant and above other people, and we want also not to be less than other people. And truly that's a sense of what I think of in the highest sense as humility. Humility means I don't put myself any better than anybody else, and I don't put myself any less than anybody else either, because both are equally unhealthy. A suitably humble person knows they have abilities, knows that they're worthy, and they know that they're not better nor less than anyone else in the world. And that's the dynamic that's underneath this positive sense of self. And so when you encounter things in the world where you have a sense of guilt or self-doubt or shame that are not built on needing in some way to improve something or correct something, where it's just battering you, that's unhealthy, because it doesn't teach, it doesn't inspire, it doesn't empower. So I want you to be sensitive to those things in the world that are calculated to break you down, calculated to make you feel bad about yourself, calculated to keep you in control by feeling as if you're less than or less powerful than. And when you encounter something like that, to remind yourself, I'm a good person. And if I did something bad, or I made a mistake, or I hurt someone, or I flubbed, I'm very willing to look at that, talk about it, figure out what to do instead, make up for it, apologize. I'm willing. So what we don't want is for you to feel cut down and hurt or slandered or in some way devalued. It's not constructive. It doesn't have any positive use. So when you feel pressed or criticized or judged by someone, there are two things, of course. One is what you do inside, and the other is what do you do outside. And sometimes, we need to accept people as they are and kind of just walk past them and not confront, because it then becomes a conflict with a belief system that they're devoted to and they won't move from. So that means we gracefully move aside and hold what we know is true for ourselves. So internally, we can just hold that and say to ourselves, this is making me feel bad, and I'm a good person. And therefore, this is useless and irrelevant, and I'm not going to take it personally. So there's that we can do inside. And I trust that that feels comfortable to you. And then, of course, there's what we do on the outside. And sometimes, if it's someone close to you, you can actually say that. You can ask them, when you start feeling attacked or put down or devalued or disrespected, you can ask them, is it your object right now to make me feel bad? Most people, it's not their object. There are mean people or there are angry people where that is definitely their goal. And if you're encountering people like that, then you don't want to take what they say seriously, because that's destructive. But if you're in a relationship with someone that's valuable to you, and they'll say something or do something that makes you feel bad, once you say, is it your object right now to make me feel bad? They'll usually say, well, no, I didn't, I didn't mean to make you feel bad. And then they may get defensive, or they may say, well, gee whiz, I'm sorry, what did I do? So that's the two general ways for us to handle those things that try to break down our positive sense of self. Any comments, observations, or questions about that, dear viewers? And thank you for tuning in. And ask me any questions anytime about what's on your mind. Doesn't have to be directly related to what I'm teaching. Okay, so that's the positive sense of self, your identity. Who am I? And the way we grow identity quite often is by developing abilities in ourselves and then using them. For example, developing a sense of how a camera works and taking pictures, how you use a wood saw and the tools in a wood shop, where if you really like woodworking, then there's a part of your identity that's a woodworker, right? And so when I think about identity, I think about the different roles that we play in life. And from my viewpoint, we have 10 to 20 of those roles. And it's all different parts of who we are. And as we develop identity, especially as we move through the different cycles or the years of life, we have a chance to move into that world and study it and develop that talent in ourselves. Even though when you're younger it's not developed, the seed of that talent or the little sprout or sapling of that talent is there, and it is a part of you. It doesn't have to be fully developed for it to be a part of your identity. So if you think about something that you've been really interested in, and one of the loveliest things in my personal life was that I was always in love with art. Loved to go to art galleries, art museums. And in my early 40s, I was tired. I'd finished my graduate degree, and I needed to do something that was not reading serious books. And I decided that I'd take painting lessons from this lovely teacher. Her name is Miss Sarah King, and she's a blessing and always will be in my life. So I went just for the fun of it to learn about painting. I didn't have a plan to make it a profession or to be good at it. I just wanted to go take lessons and do it myself. So that falls into the second block of, yes, I was developing a positive sense of self by wanting to go and take lessons about painting. And then it moved into the second block here, and that's the doing of it. So then the doing of it was wonderful because I got to do a painting every class. Maybe I didn't finish it in that class, but I actually could see what I had done. And then the third one is serving the world. And so it ended up that I do have some good paintings and people have purchased them and really love them. So that was something that I didn't find in myself nor develop in myself as a sense of the identity of an artist, a painter, until I was in my 40s. You just never know when it's going to fit in your life to focus on that part of your identity, that part of who you are, and study it, practice it, learn it, express it. Anything that you've been interested in over the span of your life marks a special part of who you are. You know the things that you like, you know the things that you don't like. You're sensitive to the things that you agree with and the things that you don't agree with. And I remember when I was just out of high school and college, I was reading some pretty meaty books. I really enjoyed them. And I thought at that point, this is really fascinating writing stories, ideas, and it was philosophy. But I knew that I didn't know enough yet to make a discerning and wise decision about this writing. I could relate to it all, and yet it felt like there was something I couldn't figure out, something that was missing in my interpretation of that. And sure enough, 30, 40 years later, I revisited that, and then I had the eyes, I had the experience to see what I knew was missing. I could then articulate it. So this is us talking today about a positive sense of self. It's a growing thing. And it truly, our ability to grow is in certain ways limitless. And if we're willing to grow, over the years, there's more and more and more. You may take something that you started and improve on it. You may take something that you've never done and enjoy learning to do that yourself and then to express it. And then sometimes it's something that you actually use as a sense of your mission in life, where you make a difference in the world in it by doing that. Any questions about this? Can you relate to this? Is this giving you a sense of, here's something I think I need to set as a goal to develop? And your goals, dear hearts, I want you to have a goal, at least one in each column. Not that you have to do it this month or even this year. It may be a 5-year goal, or a long-term goal. But I'd like you to have something in there because it reflects who you are today and what you think is worthy in life and in yourself and in what you want to develop in yourself. Any questions about that? So let's just look at identity. We're talking about identity in a large way. And then worthiness, a sense of being a worthy person. Sometimes it's hard to feel worthy in a certain area where you're a beginner or you've kind of sabotaged yourself and you see other people around you that are more successful or doing it in a different way that you think works better, and then you compare yourself with them. Now, if that breaks down your sense of worthiness, that's an ineffective choice of your thought process. Because all of us are truly, in my view, I'm a little attached to this view, but most people agree with me, that no soul is more valuable than another soul. And no soul is less valuable than another soul. We're all different in the way we express ourselves, but each soul deserves the respect that any other soul deserves. How they conduct themselves, and that then is going to determine how much time or energy I spend with or around that person, but I'm going to respect them. And so I want you to be very connected with that sense of not only respecting others, but respecting yourself. And reminding yourself, if there is something in your life, a person, a relationship, a job, a building, a group of people, a philosophy that makes you feel unworthy, it's not constructive. Now, of course, then there's the other end of the pendulum where some people feel more worthy or entitled, and that they're entitled to more than another person. And that's then going along to the other end of the spectrum. And if you find yourself feeling more entitled than another person, it's hard to look at that sometimes. Because we're told we're special. Each one of us is a special person. And yes, we deserve everything that is good in the world. And yes, we're no more worthy of it than any other person, which means we want to respect everyone's ability to have the best for themselves. Is this resonating with you? Okay, so that's worthiness. Dignity. Do you do some things that break down your dignity? I know that there are areas in the world today, especially the way the culture, kind of like the counterculture is now becoming the common culture, where we don't preserve dignity and decorum and courteous cultural postures and gestures the way they were, when we look at the movies from back in the 50s and some of them from the 60s. So this sense of dignity, sometimes people will use language or body language, or they'll dress, and they seem to not uphold their own dignity. And yet all of us have a sense of our own dignity, where it's like, don't tell me what to do, don't insult me, etc., like that. So think about you and your sense of dignity and how you want to preserve decorum and self-respect and respect for your space, your home, your office, where you work. And how do you preserve that dignity? How do you help other people preserve the dignity of themselves and their space? There's underneath that, really and truly, is gratitude and respect. And we can't express it too much, I don't think, in the world, unless people are too effusive, of course. And there's a continuum, as always, one of those dilemmas. But think about how you need to preserve your own dignity and your pride. That's not arrogant pride. Remember that continuum. We don't want you to feel less than. We don't want you to feel greater than. We want you to have a sense of pride about the goodness of who you are, so that you don't allow it to be compromised one way or the other, where you get a little too arrogant or you get a little too much sense of unworthiness and negative comparison. Then next is self-confidence, and I think that that's woven through everything that we're talking about. Also, I can't talk with us about a positive sense of self without mentioning the self-esteem source of all, Nathaniel Branden. Whoops, typo, but you get it. Nathaniel Branden. His books have been around for decades, and there's still nothing quite as excellent. So if you sometimes struggle with self-esteem and a sense of worthiness, his book on the pillars of self-esteem is remarkable. So it gives you the knowledge, and thinking it through also gives you ideas on what you can do to strengthen your sense of self-esteem and worthiness. So that's your practical method. Confidence, and then willing to learn. Willing to learn. That is such a strong position to be in. We recently watched the new Karate Kid, and how the kid went in and out of being willing to learn, and how his mentor held it for him. Held it for him when he was willing to learn, giving him more. When he wasn't, letting him be there, respecting him. And the power and the goodness of being willing to learn makes us open, receptive, and healthy, strong. We say, yes, I know enough, and I want to know more. That open-handed, open-armed enthusiasm for wanting to learn more, wanting to be informed, to improve, to learn from somebody else's wisdom or expertise or abilities. That sense of willingness to learn automatically places us in a position of feeling worthy for more knowledge, for more ability, for more improvement. Does that make sense, you guys? Can you relate to that? So that's kind of the description that I would give on the first part of this positive sense of self. And this is us developing it inside of ourselves. Then if we move into the doing of it, That means when we learn some knowledge, then using it in the world, like I did with my painting. I created some paintings, and um, I honored those paintings every time I finished one, not by taking it home and putting it in a drawer. Before I left the studio, I went and chose mats for the print. And if I could also, if I could afford it, I'd also purchase a frame so that I was acknowledging what I had done worthy of being matted and framed. So if you think about something you've learned to do, like for example, if you're learning um, to be better skilled athletically, are you then out there doing it, using it with somebody else? If you've been getting strong, are you doing racquetball? Have you got somebody where you're actually playing with them? Um, I want to read this list of what I call pictures for my identity. And this comes from my lifestyle study guide. And you can download that from the internet if you want to print it for yourself. And as I mentioned last time, here's the cover for the woman's lifestyle design guide, and here's the cover for the men's lifestyle design guide. And it goes into a little more detail than the handouts that you're printing from the Red Room series. So these are just my way of kind of maybe inspiring thoughts or giving you something where you can it's a hook for you to hang on to, and it gets you thinking about something that's special for you. So accept what you cannot change cheerfully about yourself and others. So it's like, that's just who we are. We're human beings with the cheerfulness of warmth, kindness, and reality. Do you know somebody that accepts you as you are with good cheer? Are you one of those people? Do you do that for yourself, or do you just do it for others? Or do you find yourself being kind of flat or grouchy? That's an ability. Our good cheer, our attitude of willingness and cheerfulness, those are abilities, and we'll talk more about that next week when we're looking at emotional intelligence and a positive attitude. Take private lessons or classes for the things you love. Private. It was telling when we were talking to our daughter recently, and she was judging the kids who are musicians, behind one of those screens, judging the competitions for the kids who are musicians in school. And her comment was, you could tell which of the students had a good teacher. So she didn't mention whether or not the student had talent. The big thing was, did that student have a good teacher, a private lesson teacher? Because in the beginning, when we're developing our identity, our abilities, our skills, we need mentoring, we need teaching. And if you don't supply yourself with a teacher or a class or a course of study or mentoring or apprenticeship, or like I am a supervisor of interns, my interns then benefit from what I've learned and do. I give it to them as fast as I can so that they can go faster than I did. That means that they're learning faster than I could learn when I was their age. So are you giving yourself private lessons with a mentor, someone senior to you, maybe not in age, but in skill? It's to me, it's one of the greatest gifts we can give. The presence and the encouragement and the knowledge of someone who can help improve or expand some of our abilities. Private lessons. And incidentally, my favorite example of private lessons is when Jack went and took tango lessons so that he could dance with me. That's one of the most magical, thrilling stories of our courtship. And that he made darn sure he knew how to do ballroom dance by going to take private lessons. And there are wonderful, funny stories about it too. Create a safe and comfy harbor at home, or an image in your mind's eye. Um, in your imagination, the sky's the limit. So create for yourself your own space that reflects you. And a lot of us are very connected with that, wanting to have artwork on the wall, special fabrics, how the space is colored, either feeling very traditional and warm or very clean and pristine. Do you have a space that's yours and that's decorated and arranged to reflect what you love? I remember working with a couple years ago where they'd moved into a new home. They hadn't been married that long, but they did have a child. And they were having troubles. I found out, and this wasn't planned or anything, but the man, the husband, didn't have any place in the house that was just his. There was no place for the husband, the dad. And when we identified that, and of course, unconsciously he'd been feeling kind of like displaced in this house, immediately he and his wife went out and she made sure that he had the recliner of his dreams, or the chair that, and that there was a place in the house where he could go in the quiet and feel like that was his spot, and that he was surrounded by the things that were his or reflected him. So, and sometimes that happens to us. I remember another young man where the only things left of his single life were in a large old trunk. And she didn't like it. She thought it was a kind of an icky, dirty thing. And she, put it in the garage. So the only place there was something of him, other than, his clothing, was this trunk in the garage, which means he was exiled. And he really wasn't held. Of course, I'm a marriage counselor, so this was one of the out-picturing examples of what was missing in their home, was respect for him and his identity. So you may have a sensibility about that, about yourself or someone whom you love. Anytime you want to chime in with a question or a comment, I'd love to hear from you guys. And thank you for being with me tonight. Then deep self-knowledge. And I don't know any way better than journaling. And there are many ways of journaling. I happen to be a devotee of that. And I know it right out to the ends of depth psychology. So if you ever want to know about journaling, just ask. I have a study guide for it too. But deep self-knowledge. Use a journal to record all of your thoughts, or the thoughts that you want to record. Use writing to clear up your logic, to plan your strategies, to create free mental space by getting it dumped onto the page, for more creative thinking. That's a way for you to honor yourself. And in essence, that sense, remember the sense of dignity and pride? To honor yourself by putting your thoughts and your dreams, your hopes, your feelings on paper is a way to honor that, that dignity, that sense of worthiness. And it's a quiet thing. It's a thing that's available to everyone. Costs very little, just some minutes of your time. And I find that it's one of the most intelligent, kind, and respectful things that we can do for ourselves, which means developing our identity and treating ourselves with worthiness. Writing. Invite someone to be your mentor or your teacher. Choose a positive attitude, holding determined morale, being determined to be cheerful. Or cheerfulness is a choice, and under stress is what I think of as the true mark of courage. Truly courageous people hold the warmth and the good cheer, no matter what kind of attack or difficulty they have to withstand. They hold that sense of good cheer, which in a certain way is a kind of being a loving person. And that's a part of identity. That's a part of us being us, you know? Okay, have fun, be creative, be artistic. A way to develop your sense of identity, a way to develop a positive sense of yourself. If you don't take the time, energy to have fun, be creative and artistic, there's something very precious and sacred that's kept out of your life, dears. There are some of us, and I know that I'm included in that section of our society, who was trained to be very responsible and a hard worker, and I am not good at taking time and energy to just have fun and be creative and do something that's playful. Fortunately, I've usually had people in my life who do that rather well, and I go along with them. And yet, each of us needs to have our own piece, like my painting does. And I know that sometimes I get to the place where I've abandoned it too much. So be aware that when we want to empower someone, those of us who really and truly study empowerment, the very first thing I ask is, are you getting enough breaks? Are you having fun in your week? Because that's where our sense of relaxation and energy comes from. If you don't have fun in your week, if you don't have something playful or kind of magical, then your energy level isn't as high as it could be for all the other things that you want in your life. Okay, adding on to that, escapes for renewal. Movies, trips, long drives, picnics, museums, a weekend getaway, sleep over at somebody's house that lives a distance away. Some way of breaking out of your day-to-day pattern. This is about identity, dears. It's about a sense of self, a positive sense of self, where we have a rich life and we do many things, and especially things that speak to our own sense of what we think is good, positive, fun, creative, freeing, expanding, that willingness to learn. And willingness to learn not only the endless new software program, but also something that's fun, like square dancing or singing or playing an instrument. Not that I'm just picking on music, although most of us love that. Any questions from anyone out there? I got a text about a prayer just now. I'm wondering where that came from. You know, I think it's somebody sending me a text who doesn't know me, but it's about prayer. It's very sweet. Okay. Give and receive affection. We need affection. We need to kiss, touch, hug, hold, arm around, brush shoulders, sit next and feel the body. We all need that. We have that hunger for touch. Now that's partly physical, but it's also part of feeling connected and worthy and a sense of goodness about ourselves. So do you get enough of those things where you're connected with other people? Okay, wear the clothes, read the books, create the objects that make you feel special. Wear the clothes that make you feel special, whether it's comfy clothes or way out clothes or very elegant or designed by yourself. How we dress ourselves, it's so personal, and it says so much, yes, to other people, but more than that, mirroring for us our sense of our own goodness and our own specialness. So wear the clothes. Are there clothes that you don't let yourself wear that you always wanted to? And is that because you haven't allowed yourself to move into that space? You know, have you always wanted to go on an archaeological dig with the boots and the pith helmet and stuff? You could do that. Read the books. One way for us to find a sense of ourselves is to read the books about people who value the same things we value. I like pioneering and adventuring, which means I love reading books about mountain climbers. You know, I'm never going to be a mountain climber, but those kinds of books thrill me somehow. So we want to read the books, not just the most recent fiction adventure, not the textbooks, but the books that connect with our identity, and take the time to do that. Create the objects that make you feel special. Create whatever it is that you like around you. You know, maybe it's a special piece of furniture, maybe it's a crib for your child, maybe it's the drapes that you need to order that didn't come with your house. Whatever it is that mirrors you. Research and plan a trip that excites you and for which you must save an unusual amount of time and money. I think about that as grown-up adventure, a sense of developing your identity and then expressing it in the adult form, where it's not just a quick fix, where it's something meaningful and delicious and substantial, where you have to save money because it's something that's that outrageously wonderful. And maybe you put a map on the wall with, or on your Google Maps or something, where you've got little push pins in the places where you want to go. Think about how that mirrors for you your sense of identity, your positive sense of self. That you plan something that's that adventurous and special. You know, you decide you want to go and taste olive oil in Tuscany, and that may take a couple of years to plan and save for, and yet it's a couple of years of enjoying the planning process and the anticipation, knowing that you're worthy and you're capable of doing something like that. Not just wanting it, but doing it, and then experiencing it. Hi, Heather, just got in. Regan. Hi, Regan. Excellent. I'm talking tonight about developing a sense of identity and then expressing your identity in the world and then giving it some way to make a difference. And so I'm just going through this list, and here are the last couple of things on the list, just kind of to prime your pump to get you thinking about what you want. Play the music that lifts your spirits and dance to it. That's a simple thing. Like creating an object that mirrors your identity. Make sure, and there are a lot of people who do this anyway, but sometimes we forget to play the music that we love. And I know you and I love Pandora, where now we can create our own radio station wherever we have a computer. That's a rather magical thing. And then get humor and laughter in your life. Most of us have somebody in our lives that has a great sense of humor and makes us laugh. Sometimes they're few and far between. So if there are people in your life who make you laugh, make you smile, have a great sense of humor, they're the ones that are going to inspire you in your identity to be lighter, happier, more full of energy, more enthusiastic. You want to plan more time with those people so that being in their presence elicits, draws forth the best in you. So there are some ideas. So if we're looking at these three columns, the last one now, we've been kind of going in that direction, because the things we've been describing about we develop inside ourselves and then we do it in the world. Then this third column is we use it to make a difference. And most of the things we've been talking about then can be expressed in some way so that it makes a difference with other people. And this means what we're now giving the world when we develop a positive sense of self is a confident role model. And you may or may not know this, but I'm devoted to the idea that the very best thing we can do for our children, no matter what age they are, from birth on out through their 40s, and especially the children that are trying to find their own sense of identity, which is adolescence. And FYI, adolescence lasts from 13 on up to about 26. They need to see people and be around people who are authentic, who have a good sense of worthiness and an enjoyment of their own identity. Because as we do that, we are role models to them, not necessarily that they're going to develop like us. It encourages them to find their specialness and who they are. If we are authentic in our own skin, if we love being ourselves and expressing ourselves, we end up giving our young people the greatest empowerment gift they can receive from what my research shows me, and that is good role models. So just that in itself is a way of serving the world through developing a positive sense of your own identity. Helping our juniors and our elders, that confidence, that naturalness, that knowing this is what I stand for and what I value. And then, of course, teaching, leading. And when you do that, you're going to get recognition. Are you one of those people that receives recognition, or do you brush it off? When we receive recognition, the receiving of recognition is both the person who gives it and the person who receives it. Otherwise, the recognition isn't complete. So when someone recognizes you for something that you've done or something that you are, or in some way that you've shown up, the appropriate, courteous, and dignified thing is for you to receive it, integrate that into your sense of self, which gives you more confidence and more inspiration to do even more. And even more importantly, you thank the person. Thank them for the gift that they gave you. So that's an important part of a sense of positive identity, because you will get recognition when you are that healthy. Receive it and thank for it. And use it as food for you, food for your identity, your soul, the things that you really love. Use it as energy, as food to fire you to go even farther. Eat it up. Consulting, supervising, advising, inspiring. These are the things that people need, and it's like nourishment for a sense of worthiness. So it's not only that we want to build our own sense of worthiness, self-esteem, deservingness, confidence, and strength of ourself. It's also what we offer when we move into the role of leadership. Because when you move into the role of leadership with that kind of authenticity and strong sense of your own goodness and your own self, as a leader, then, you're easy in your own saddle. You're not self-conscious. You don't have to take care of yourself. You have all of your faculties to offer the people you're leading and inspiring. You don't have to take care of yourself anymore. And that means that you're really and truly giving the same things to the people around you. That same sense of when they're around you and you can be a visionary or a leader or supervisor or consultant in some way, you then empower the people with you to behave as if they're your peer. So the better you treat yourself, the better you express yourself, the more you're inviting others to treat themselves with equal respect and to express themselves that confidently. Isn't that the greatest gift of developing your positive sense of self, your identity? That then you're inviting and giving permission to other people to be for others to be the best that they can be as well. Any questions, any comments, any dialogue about this tonight? Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Or do you have a question that you've been holding on your mind that you want to ask Heather? Because you know me, I love answering questions and giving you ideas. Are you relating to this? Is this helpful to you in terms of thinking about developing your positive sense of self and making places for that in your life? Everyone's been very quiet tonight. Does that mean that this is working or you're not relating to it? I'd love to hear from you. And also, our time is almost up, so I'd like to hear just something about what you think about tonight, about a goal perhaps that you have been inspired to set for yourself. Let me know. And then I'll just put in here what we're going to do next week, like we did this week. I will revisit again next week what we talked about tonight. If you want me to answer your questions or to give you some more ideas about how you develop your identity and your confidence. Next week, we're going to do number 4, which is emotional intelligence and enthusiasm. Learning how to handle yourself and your emotions with emotional intelligence. Oh, good. We've got somebody saying something. It seems the 3 columns beginning with internalizing through consulting or giving to others is very reinforcing. Yes! Thank you so much, dear. That was my intention. And great that it's working for you. Thank you, Heather. Regarding goals, you have started me thinking about a newer concept of myself. Oh, yes. Oh, excellent. And what is it? What direction? What new direction about your self-concept? I'm so curious. I mean, are you now going to become a builder? Are you going to become a teacher or an artist or, a boxer? I don't know. What's the new concept of yourself? I'm so curious if you can share that. So many options. I'm not near deciding. Ooh, and that's a yummy place to be, isn't it? And if you want more options, I have a passion list that's about 8 pages long. And I actually got a new book just recently. I don't know where I put it. But it's a book about inspiring things to do. And I'm going to wade through that and kind of pull out the things that I don't have on my passion list to make sure that I've got juicy things for people to think about and choose. Knowing that you may edit it down to only 10 things for yourself, and yet some of them you're like, oh, I forgot. That's one of the things that I really like. Okay, good. I'll look forward to hearing if you've gotten some new insights by next week. And I'd love to hear any of you when you have some recommendations or some ideas about what you do to want to develop your identity, to get lessons, to improve one of your abilities in any way. I always want to know about that. My business is empowering people, which means I need to have resources and methods and directions for us to go, not just the concepts around it. So thank you, sweeties. Thank you, dears, for tuning in tonight and making this broadcast meaningful for me. And so next week, we're going to do section 4, which is actually number 10, 11, and 12. And that is my goals for emotional intelligence and an optimistic attitude. So, first of all, your optimistic attitude and your emotional resilience, how to bounce yourself back, how to handle yourself in an interaction with people when you're having emotional quickening, and then your mission for being in relationships. How are you connected in your heart, in your relationships? And of course, as a marriage counselor, I have lots of things to share with you about that. So thank you for tuning into the Red Room tonight. Good night, and I will see you next Wednesday night in the Red Room, same time, same place. Thank you, everyone.